In this lesson, we'll cover creating the local file that synchronizes to your central project. Now, in a previous lesson, we created a central project file for our Revit project. Basically, that's the central file that all users would synchronize their changes to that are currently going to be working on this Revit project. So with the central Revit file project created, the next step is to create local copies of it for all the users, because the users are going to want to work on that copy or their local file and then just synchronize their changes back to the central file. So the steps to do that is to first locate that central project file that's set up. That would be given to you by an administrator or somebody else. This step may already be defined, but the process to create this local file would be as such. In Revit, let's click Open. When the open window appears, let's browse to your C drive, Learning Revit Structure 2015, Chapter 5, or wherever you stored the files from the DVD. Now, the project that we want to open is called Central Project 510. And technically, we don't want to open it, we just want to select it. Now, note, when you're looking at this window, there's also a folder called Central Project 510 Backup. Whenever you create a central file, Revit automatically creates a backup file in case it becomes corrupt, so you can restore it. Now, with the Central Project 510 selected, at the very bottom of this window is a work sharing area where we can set this to Audit, Detach from Central, or what we want to do right now, create new local. That's going to basically make a copy of the central project as it is right now and make a new local Revit file that I will use personally to work upon this project. So go ahead and click Open. Now what happens now, Revit takes the central project file, looks at what's in it, takes that information and creates another Revit file, but links the two together. Then Revit names this new file, starting with the name of the central project, so it's central project _ 510. Then it appends my Windows username or login name to the end of it. So I'm logged in as just the user called 1. This file, as I could see at the very top, is called Central Project 510 _ 1. So now really I'm ready to start working on this local file to add things, modify things, and then synchronize everything back to the central project. The first thing you want to do though is you want to make sure whatever you're going to work upon or create is in the active work set. Let's go to the Collaborate tab on your ribbon. Then in the Manage Collaboration panel, I can click the drop-down and choose a work set for whatever I wanted to create, such as floors. So now floors is the active work set. I can also see it on the very bottom of the Revit window, where I can set my work set here. Also, if you click the Work Sets button on the ribbon, this will open up the work sets, and I can see floors is the active work set, but I also could take ownership of one of these work sets. You may say, well, why would you want to, and why wouldn't you want to, and where would you do it? Well, if you wanted to take ownership of the floors work set, I can click No, hit the drop down, and set it to Yes. And then I can see my name is now listed in owner. Again, I'm logged in as the user called 1. Now what this does, it basically makes me and only me the only person that can modify anything that was done with the floor work set. Now you may say, well, why would I want to do that? Well, maybe the building project is currently under review and you need to lock all design changes or modifications until the review is complete. This is one way to do it. You can actually lock the work set or work sets in this manner so no one else can modify anything. Now, that's also a negative because let's say you have 4 people working on the floor work set. So you just don't want one person coming in and taking ownership of that actual work set because that locks the other users out from doing anything. So really the only method in this example of why I would want to lock the work set or make it editable would be if I'm under design review. Let's change this back to no though for this example. Click OK. Now let's draw something and see how it's going to work. Let's go to the Structure tab, click the Wall drop down, and click Wall Structure. So we're going to create a structural wall. For this example, I really don't care about the type of wall or the dimensions of the wall. Let's just draw a wall by clicking points. So I'm just going to click a point on the left, drag my mouse to the right, a given distance, click again, and hit the Escape key twice. So we just drew a wall. But look at the bottom of your screen in the work set that's active. It's floors. So I technically drew this wall on the wrong work set, or it's tied to the wrong work set. So how do you change that? Well, let's look at the properties of the wall. So if you click on the wall now, in the properties box on the left, scroll almost all the way down to the bottom, you have under identity data work set. You can see it's tied to floors. Well, here I could change that to walls and then click apply. That'll apply that to the correct work set. Now, after you've actually created elements, did some modification work, and you're ready to synchronize. To synchronize my changes back to the central project file, I can go to the Collaborate tab. I could click the Synchronize with Central dropdown, and if I want to add notes to what I've done, I can click Synchronize and Modify Settings. This will open up, and then I can say, in this case, I added walls, or whatever you did for a comment. Here's the location of where it's synchronizing it back to, that Central Project 510 file. And when I click OK, that information is now synchronized back to the project. If you took ownership of any of the work sets, that ownership is relinquished. You can also relinquish manually by simply clicking Relinquish All Mine. Now, to see the history of what was done by me and other people, you can click Show History. When you click Show History, Revit will ask you, well, what do you want to view the history of? Well, I could point to the Central Project file, select it, click Open, and here's the history now of everything that was done to that file. Now, I'm the only user right now, and you're the only user in yours that actually is tied to that central project. You're just seeing information modified by you. But as more people would be working on the central file, you would see their name and their comments. Click Close. Now, if the file became corrupted, you could also click Restore Backup. That would allow you to point to that backup folder and then restore the actual file, in this case, my local file or the central file, to its previous state. Now, regarding the local file, you may ask, well, where did it save this? It never asked me to do a save as. It just kind of created it, gave it its name, but how do I know where it's at? Well, that's defined by your Revit settings. So if you look at the large R in the upper left, and then you click Options on the menu that flies out. Then on the Options menu, click File Locations. Under File Locations, for the default path for user files, I see on my computer it's C Users, my username number 1, and Documents. So basically my documents. That's where it saved the file to. Go ahead and click OK. And to see the file, I'm just going to browse in Windows File Explorer to my documents. And in my documents, here's the file that was just created, Central Project _510, and then at the very end, my username for Windows is appended. Now again, I'm just number 1, so it's number 1. Here's the backup folder that it created for my project as well. In case my Revit file became corrupted, I could also restore from the backup. Now, you can also move these. So if you don't like where this is at, you can move these at this point. Just close the file in Revit, browse to Windows File Explorer, and move the backup file and the other file to its given location. That may be the process, especially if an administrator creates these for you. You would want to then move them to a directory on your computer. So as a review, in this lesson, we looked at creating the local files for each user that would synchronize to your central project file. To do that, we started to open the central project file and verified Create Local File at the very bottom was selected. With that selected, we continued the open, and it created a new Revit file for us, saving it to the default location where Revit stores user file names. Typically, that's in your documents. That new Revit file name is the same name as the central project, but appended with your Windows username. Once we had the file open, we activated a work set, looked how we could take ownership of a work set, and then we added an element such as a wall to our Revit project. We then looked at changing the work set that it belonged to. We synchronized the changes back to the central server, and then we looked at the history of what's been synchronized to that central server project.